So this is a presentation on how change orders work. My name is Matt Evans, and in the year 2026, I am developing a software application, and I'm producing some videos and some information to help educate people on how the actual software project actually works. How would you actually create software? Change orders are to me, they're at the heart of actually how you create software. Change orders drive execution. And when I have a conversation with the AI agent and Claude Cowork, I actually call it the single point of execution or change orders. Now, if you're just now a little bit of a caveat to this, if you're developing something real simple like a simple mobile app, then probably you're not going to do change orders. So the change order process probably applies more to larger software development projects. And in my case, it is basically a 5-step process where you conceive it from requirements. So I submit requirements to conceive the change order, which the AI agent and Claude Cowork creates and tracks, which we'll explain here in the presentation. Then I submit it to a super agent, which you'll see how that works on the hosting platform. It's executed on the hosting platform. Then I got to circle back to the AI agent on Claude Cowork, which verifies and closes it out. And that's the process. So I'm going to explain exactly how change orders work on software development projects. So what exactly is a change order? A change order controls all of the changes that you're going to be making to the software application. Here's one way to kind of think about it. Suppose you're building a house. And when you first build the house, you have to set a foundation. That's a change order. Then you put up the framing of the house. That's a change order. You put installation inside the framing of the house. That's a change order. Wiring, electrical wiring, a change order. So what a change order really is, to a great extent, is you're building out functionality or function points in a sequential process to eventually build out an entire software application that solves a problem, or building a house that eventually someone can occupy and live in. Now, sometimes change orders could also be to fix a problem, to establish, let's say, the life cycle approach. Maybe you have a change order that may not even be a technical requirement. It could be a regulatory, like I have a regulatory compliance issue that becomes a change order. And it drives certain changes within software applications, such as making sure people sign an acceptance document when they go through the beta test per the law, the legal firm that's helping me out with the software development project. Like on the right side of the slide, change order 21. Well, what happened here was we kept building stuff, and there was no real toll gates to put discipline within the life cycle of the project. So change order 21 imposed certain toll gates to establish discipline so that we build things in the right order. I don't want to start wiring a house until I have the framing in place. So there was some discipline needed. So that change order 21 put discipline. And not every single change is going to be a change order. I mean, if I want to change a button or a color, or I want to add some text to a message for the end user, I mean, little minor changes can fly under the change order process. But for the most part, when you build something out and you want to capture everything that is going to make the software really work for the end user, you're gonna submit a change order. So in my case, Claude Cowork, the AI agent in Claude Cowork, builds and constructs the actual change order. And when you actually look at it, it actually has 3 components or parts to it: a header section, the name of the change order, a quick description of it. UI design means user interface design. And the source documents that basically gave birth, conceived the change order, certain dependencies. And I also went back and had it rank all the change orders in terms of technical difficulty, low, medium, and high, because if it got to be a really technical change order, I might have them prepare an SOP, a standard operating procedure, or I might review that with someone who has a lot more experience with this than I do, because I'm a finance guy. I'm not a software developer, so sometimes you have to do a little bit of additional work before you execute the change order. And then you execute the execution piece of this is where I literally copy and paste, go to the what's called the SA super agent on the hosting platform. I post it to the super agent on the hosting platform to execute the change order, and I go have this conversation. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to also create what's called an SA response document. So I copy that from the hosting platform to an SA response document. I save that, submit it back to Claude Cowork, the AI agent, to validate and close the change order. And it usually goes through a diagnostics test of some kind. And sometimes that might also involve me going into a web browser and doing it in incognito, which means I open a private web browser so it's not tainted or confused with cookies and things like that. So it's a very clean way to go through the process. So these are the three pieces of the change order that Claude Cowork created so that I run my software development project. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what it actually looks like. So why do you actually use change orders? Well, one reason obviously is to prevent scope creep. So you don't want things to get out of hand. Like suppose someone just gave you a bunch of lumber, nails, and tools and said, go build a house. That would probably be a disaster. So you would probably want to start with some type of blueprint before you build the house. In the world of software development, you would have some type of architectural design. That architectural design is kind of like the fence line. This is what we're trying to build. And then you build out function point after function point after function point within that fence line. So that's kind of the process you would follow. And is the change order aligned to the design architecture, the blueprint, yes or no? And that keeps you within that fence line. The second thing is it creates a paper trail, a documented trail, because what happens, and I'll do a future video on this. Guess what happens if you decide, well, guess what? I don't want 2 bathrooms. I just want 1 bathroom, but I want a double garage in the house. So all of a sudden you've changed the design architecture of the software, like the house. So the fact that if you didn't have that paper trail and that documented trail of change orders of what you've built, you can't figure out what needs to change and get rebuilt or reworked in the process. So the fact that you have a documented trail allows you to do configuration management using AI, artificial intelligence. Without that, you're going to have a real mess on your hands. And it keeps everything aligned in a certain sequence so that everybody is marching in the same step within the same scope of everything that has to be done. And some change orders will be in a certain sequence. They may move around. And if you have a change order that impacts another change order, so this is why you have to have all this documented, a process that's followed. And the nice thing is artificial intelligence really helps manage the whole process really, really well. So if you use the change orders and use it correctly, it's definitely going to help you get through the software development project, absolutely positively. So the structure in which the execution of the change order takes place is there's 3 players involved. And basically, you're talking about me, Matt Evans, the project manager, which we'll call role 1, admin. And then there's the AI assistant, which is Claude Cowork, that kind of is in between me and the AI builder, which is role 3 on the hosting platform. So essentially, there's three players involved: role one, role two, role three, two of which are AI agents and me, the project manager, and that's it. This is the entire project team for executing and developing software. A triage structure, tri means tricycle, three. And the role one, role two interaction takes place on my laptop computer through Claude Cowork. And then the hosting platform is role three. So there's two domains involved: the laptop computer, me, and Claude Cowork. That's role one, role two on domain one, laptop computer. And role three is the hosting platform where the software is hosted, where you have all the firewall protection, all the artifacts, all the JavaScript files, all the backend, all the config, all of it. Everything is going to be delivered and managed on a hosting platform to take care of everything. The administrative control panel, everything, all of it. It's going to be on that hosting platform. So this is how software is developed now in the world of AI, artificial intelligence. So let me talk about the 5 different steps that I go through when I execute a change order, starting with step 1. Where it is conceived from is requirements, and that's basically functionality, function points. So maybe I'm trying to, let's say, build out a function that will calculate the contingency reserve for a cost estimate, and I have to build out that functionality with some tables and some logic and some data entry and stuff like that and calculations. So this all gets captured through some documents, requirements documents, that typically are captured on through a requirements session, typically with Claude code late at night, which I'll describe in another video how that works. But I'm trying to solve a specific problem: how to calculate the contingency reserve for a cost estimate. So you're trying to build out some specific idea or problem and solve it. And how do I build a software application to do that? So that's where the birth of the change order comes from, is some requirements. And it could be to fix something, to improve something, maybe. It doesn't always have to be. Most of it's a build function points, but not always is going to work that way. Like on the right side of the slide is change order 15, which happened to be I stumbled into something that I shouldn't have done, which is I basically created some input apps. They were public facing apps because I wanted people just to test it out to see if this even made any sense before I even got to minimum viable product. But then Claude and the AI agents, and I had some conversations with AI and said, wait a minute, you can't really just collect financial data. You have to comply. There's some compliance issues that you have to comply with when you collect financial data from other companies. So I had to shut the public-facing visibility on that down, test it in incognito on Google to make sure it was okay, and we had to purge the database if we had collected any data. So this change order actually corrected and fixed a problem that I created as the project manager because I didn't understand some of the rules and regulations. And all of the change orders are in a folder, 09 admin submissions is where everything is captured, and all the change orders are in a single big, huge, giant Word document so that it's tracked and tiered. And while that, I'll explain that here in a little bit. But the first step is you conceive it by solving a problem. And it's most of the time, that's going to come through a requirements process, which I'll go into greater detail in another video. So Claude Cowork is actually going to create the actual change order and track it and also close it out. So step 2 means I'm ready to go ahead, and it's created the change order based on how we did it in step 1, which is driven by requirements, primarily requirements. And it may break it out into specific steps or action items, which is what it did with change order 21. In most cases, the change order is one big, huge, single action item, but it could be several action items, more than one. And it also kind of assigned an urgency level because we needed to kind of take quick action on a non-compliance issue. This was a fix change order that we executed with change order 21. So again, Claude Cowork, the AI agent, is going to create and track the change order execution. And it's all in a single large book, which I call the single point of execution book, where everything is listed in a certain sequence and order so that you can execute the software development project in an orderly manner per all the change orders in a single book. So we're now reached the point where we actually have a working session, and working sessions is where all action and activities and everything takes place for software development projects. And the working sessions can be, sometimes they're just administrative things you got to get fixed. Do you have enough requirements? Do you need more specifications? You have a conversation with your AI agent to get to the point where you have the actual change order. So, and it will queue up the change orders as they are needed to be executed in a certain order per the single point of execution book. And it's, you might refer to it as the master document, and that's what's on the right side of the slide. And it's a big, big Word document, actually, and I call it the Super Agent Prompts document because most of it really is me copying the prompts and putting it into the Super Agent, which is over the hosting platform for building out the software. And that's the AI builder. The AI builder is the super agent and the AI agents attached to any specific application on the hosting platform. And then I got to circle back to Claude Cowork so it tracks and updates the status of the change order. And that's basically what we're doing here. We're going to submit it based on a working session. It's at the top of the queue in the master document. I copy and paste from the prompt section to the super agent. I open up on my laptop computer. I have a session with the super agent right after I have a working session that is open with Claude Cowork to execute on change orders to develop the software application. This is what's going on to build out the software. So step 4 is execution. That's where I'm actually working with the super agent, which is over all the applications being built on a hosting platform. The software is going to be hosted on some other platform. And this is the AI builder. This is where the actual build takes place. All the files, the JavaScript files, everything is on the back end, is created by the AI super agent and or the AI agent for the respective application in a suite of applications, in my case, that I'm building out. And that is step 4, building it out, executing it. So the AI builder or the super agent over the hosting platform reads the prompt that I post into its window. It tries to make sense out of what I want to do. Then it directs me specifically as what I need to do is if I need to interact with a specific application. In some cases, the super agent can actually process the change itself that cascades across all of the applications. Like change order 21 is basically coming up with a change that is across 8 different applications just to change it from, let's say, public facing to private facing. And it directs me as I go do this, and it has a checklist, and it'll have a little green check mark and say, come back and tell me when you've done app 1. Then repeat the process for app 2. So sometimes it's a very repetitive type of process for a multitude of applications. But this is the process that you're going to go through, and you're going to save all of this to a build response document so that the Claude Cowork AI agent can go ahead and close it out in the 5th and final step. Then the 5th step is to go through a diagnostic test that will close out the change order, and that's the 3rd component, the diagnostics closeout box in the change order document itself. And that usually requires that I submit and capture the super agent's responses and or also sometimes I have to capture certain responses and checks that I have to do at my end and communicate that back to Claude Cowork, the AI agent, in order to close out the change order, and it moves it from the top of the queue to the bottom of the queue so that it's now closed out and no longer at the top of the queue in the change order book, the single point of execution book. So that pretty much is the 5-step process I follow for change orders to build out software. And there is an arrangement or also a tiering, a tier structure that exists in the change order book itself. And you can also think of it as priorities. So if something has to be fixed, that becomes an extremely high priority. In fact, everything gets blocked until you get that resolved, because that could be a real showstopper, like a compliance issue, or the fact that we need toll gates to put discipline before we just start building things and having to do reworks too much in downstream application development. So sometimes blockers are needed to fix things. They become real high priority, immediate. Now, literally stop everything and fix this before we go any further, such as toll gates or compliance issues might be 2 examples I ran into. For priority 0, priority 1 is where most, not all, but the bulk of what you're going to be doing is build, and you want to build it so you can get to minimum viable product. That's your first release. And then you have execution administrative things that you have to deal with, that just helps bring more discipline and business rules to follow. Like we went around and around with how many days should we hold inventory? How do we calculate the number of days that inventory should be developed for starting inventory? Well, AI agent used 30 days. I did research and it looked like 45 days, but that's too generic. We go back and change that. And then I have another session, in this case with Manus AI, to see if it could come up with something interesting. And it came with 15 different variations for inventory days. For perishable food is real short. Furniture is much longer. So what we're doing is we're going through a process sometimes where we might change some of the business rules, or there might be admin tasks that we need to deal with, like decisions. The AI agent will say, you need to give me 4 or 5, here are the 6 decisions you need to make before I can even execute this change order. And then there might be future bills, which are way off into the future beyond the minimum viable product. Like I'm not ready to do, let's say, dynamic scenario analysis or pricing tools or something maybe like the AI data entry helper. Those are features and functions that are nice to have, but not must-have requirements. We're trying to solve the main problem so that we can get some market traction with minimum viable product. And it's the priority 1 build. That's where most of your focus is going to be at. So ultimately, really, the project manager is going to own and really initiate the requirements process and get to the change order process. And like I said, execution is through the change order process. And it's tracked, numbered, processed, session to session, working session to session. And it basically makes sure everything is on track, on time, clearly instructed. There's no surprises. It's logically mapped out. And yes, you're going to interact probably with artificial intelligence to help make this actually happen. So that's how projects are done now for software development. The website listed at the bottom here is just the basic website I have for helping people with startup financial plans, primarily in the United States. My email address is at the bottom of the slide if you need to reach out for questions or comments. And I hope you enjoyed learning about how change orders work for software development projects.